Well, here's the order of the work for part 2 of removing the front wheel. This is we've removed the speedo cable already. So next we take off the fender bracket on the right side, remove the right caliper, the left one stays on the forks, loosen the axle pinch bolt, loosen the axle nut and the bolt and remove it. The other pinch bolt, how you're supposed to do it in that order makes no sense to me, but that's what it says. Remove the axle. Maybe they're talking about, they say bolt, but I think they mean the nut. So you loosen the one axle pinch bolt, remove the nut on the axle, the other axle pinch bolt, remove the axle. Then you remove the front wheel very carefully because the left caliper is still attached to the fork. The axle collar, I don't know why that doesn't come out before the wheel, I don't understand. And finally, the little speedo gearbox. So that's what it says in the manual. We'll go try to do it now. Okay, so things we're going to go after are these bolts holding on this fender bracket here, the bolts holding on the right caliper, the pinch bolts, and I don't know which side the axle nut is on. I don't know this motorcycle well enough, but that looks like it. So, looks like there's pinch bolts on both sides, and they also hold on these brackets. And there's the, appears to be the axle nut. And I guess this is the spacer in here. So we'll have at this, and somehow we've got to tie this caliper up. And what people caution you to do is to take a couple of wooden wedges and shove them in there so that if somebody squeezes the brake, it doesn't really screw things up. I don't think I'm likely to squeeze the front brake, but maybe we'll find the wedges anyway. But I definitely have to find out something to tie that caliper to and with. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I better figure it out. Okay, here we've got our little gizmo to hang the brake with. We just got a strap around the fork leg and a little short bungee cord. 10 millimeter socket is all it takes to get this loose, and taking anything to take that off. Got to free the hydraulic brake line from this clip on the part of the brake, part of the fender bracket. It's probably better to do it before you loosen the bracket. I didn't. 12 millimeter socket to take off these bolts that hold the brake to the fork. Well, this is your chance to inspect your brake pads, see what kind of condition they were in. This did not want to come off very darn easily, and I think that tells me I want to put a little bit of that Molly brake grease on these pins where these shoes have to slide. Shouldn't have been that tough to get it off. And I'm going to put these two, yeah, I guess I can't do that. Alright. Okay, again the 12 millimeter socket on these pinch bolts. On this back one you want to take your extension off so that you don't mar the brake disc. So Honda gives you this kind of crude 22 millimeter box wrench and a little extension handle that you can remove this axle nut with. And that's okay, but I've got a socket that fits it, which I prefer to use. And in case somebody has tightened this with superhuman strength like they had done this bolt here, I'm going to use this. Happens to be an impact socket, but it's not necessary with a 1/2 inch drive, but it fits good and it gives me plenty of leverage, so that's what I'll do. So this gives this from the center of the thing to the middle of the grip is 1 foot, and that was tightened up to about 45 or 50 foot-pounds. I got to look in the book to see what the torque setting is, but I think they probably overdid it. I'm glad I wasn't trying to do it with that little 6-inch wrench handle. I'd have had to beat on it with a hammer. Okay, next step is to go over to the other side and loosen these pinch bolts. Actually, I think they tell you to remove that nut now, so I'll go ahead and do that. And after you remove the axle nut, for some reason the next step is to loosen these other pinch bolts, so that's the way we're doing it. Okay, they called it an axle bolt, and it really is, not just a nut. And then you've got to get the axle out, and to do that you've got to stick a screwdriver in this hole in the end of the axle in order to be able to pull it out. When you get the front wheel out, you're going to have 2 loose parts. This axle collar and the speedo gearbox. Got to remove both of those. Now you've got a wheel that's free with nothing that'll fall off it. So when you're done, you've got a motorcycle with a jack underneath holding it up, your fork spare, and your wheel free, and all your parts in a nice little tin can. And the last step is going to be to clean up the wheel before you take it to the mechanics to put the tire on it, so they give you nice service. Okay, the last step before you take these things in to get the tires mounted and balanced is get the rims clean. And it didn't take anything more than this stuff, full strength in this case, a Scotch-Brite pad. This is a heavy-duty pot scrubber sponge, and the result is a pretty decent looking rim. So we just rinsed it off with water and tape over the bearings to keep the crud out of them. And it's not perfect, but it's 31 years old, and it ain't too bad either.